Hey everyone, I know this is difficulty level 3, so this might take me a little while. I have to get my head around processing this, but here's my blind look at all these questions of central ideas and details, difficulty level 3. Tips before I go: I need to remember to read the question first. The main ideas are probably going to be mentioned more than once. Look out for transition words or contrast words, and eliminate answers that are too narrow to be a main idea. So, diving into this one, read the question first. What does the text most strongly suggest about Sleep No More's use of its performance space? Okay, cool. The most recent iteration of the immersive theater experience, Sleep No More, which premiered in New York City that year, transformed its performance space, a 5-story warehouse, into a hotel. Audience members who wander through the labyrinth venue at their own pace follow the actors as they play out simultaneous interweaving narrative loops. Confront the impossibility of experiencing the production in its wholeness. The play's refusal of narrative cohesiveness thus hinges on the sense of spatial fragmentation that venue's immense and intricate layout generates. Okay, let's venture a guess first. What does the text most strongly suggest about the use of performance space? Super big, fragmented, depends on the user's or the viewer's capability of piecing it all together. The choice of the venue enables the play's creator to experiment with the use of theatrical space in the ways that venues from earlier productions could not. That kind of sounds good. We'll hold. Audience members likely find the experience of the play disappointing. No mention of whether or not people hate it or like it. Production dependence on a particular performance environment would likely make it difficult to reproduce exactly in a difficult theatrical space. Okay, this is definitely true. Is that the main idea? No, it doesn't talk about whether or not we want to go to a different space. So it's like second choice, but probably an X. Audience members who navigate space according to a recommended itinerary will likely have a better grasp on the play's narrative. There's no itinerary. That wasn't mentioned. It has to be mentioned more than once. All right, and also things mentioned more than once. To reproduce exactly in a different theatrical space. Does it talk about reproducing this in a different theatrical space? No, it doesn't. So I'm feeling more confident that C is not the right answer. And then choice of New York City venues likely enables the play creators to experiment with the use of theatrical space in a way that venues from earlier productions could not. Okay. There were earlier productions. Were there? Yeah. Because we have a most recent iteration. That means there's more than one iteration. Wonderful. Let's see what else. Confront the impossibility of experiencing it all at once. That means that everybody's experience is different. That seems very experimental to me. Hinges on the sense of the viewer's capability and just the whole like labyrinthian nature of this. Going with A. All right. Following text is adapted from Maria Christie Mina's story, blah, blah, blah. All right, based on the text, how do people in the capital of Mexico City most likely regard this character? It is a saying in the capital of Mexico that that character carries more family secrets under his hat than that of the archbishop. The doctor's hat is approximately enough, commonly capacious, rising very high, singing so low that it seems to be supported by his ears and eyebrows, and has a furry look as if it were been brushed the wrong way, which is perhaps what happens to it if it ever brushed at all. When the doctor takes it off, the family secrets do not fly out like a flock of parrots, but remains nicely balled up underneath a dome of old and lightly polished ivory. Cool. Sounds like this guy has a lot of secrets. That's what I'm going at. Many have come to tolerate him despite his disheveled appearance. We're not really interested in his appearance. I mean, we talk pretty intensely about this hat, but that's not. We don't care what he looks like. B, few feel concerned that he will divulge their competences. Getting to the right point, but we're more talking about this guy who just has a lot of secrets. Doesn't say whether or not a lot of people trust him with their secrets. He could be finding out the secrets some other way. Some dislike how freely he discusses his own family. I don't think that was mentioned. Most would be unimpressed by him were it not for his professional expertise. I am between A and I'm getting rid of A, getting rid of C. The fact that his secrets do not fly out like a flock of parrots means it's a really weird artistic way of saying his secrets, like loose lips sink ships. That's not him. So I'm going back on what I said. I'm going with B. Question based on the text: what challenge do humans sometimes experience? What challenge do humans sometimes experience? Interesting. Following text is adapted from this poem, Thoughts in a Zoo. They in their cruel traps, and we in ours, survey each other's rage and pass the hours, commiserating each the other's woe to mitigate his own pain's fury glow. Okay. Animals are in traps. We are in traps. We have rage. Both of us have rage. We talk about it, and we to minimize how bad we're feeling. Man could but little proffer in exchange, save that his cages have a larger range. I'll be honest. I don't know what that word means, which is a problem, but save that his cage have a larger range. That sounds like a comparison like, hey, at least we have bigger cages. The lion with his lordly untamed heart has in some man his human counterpart. Some lofty soul in dreams and visions wrapped, but in the stifling flesh securely trapped. All right, let's go through the answers. They cannot effectively tame certain wild animals because of the lack of compassion. I don't think we're talking about taming animals. Now, these are still wild animals, so that's the whole untamed heart thing. I'm getting rid of A. They cannot focus on setting attainable goals because of the lack of motivation. That feels just like a non sequitur. I might be missing something, though. They quickly become frustrated when faced with difficult tasks because of the lack of self-control. That doesn't feel right. They have aspirations that cannot be filled because of certain limitations. Ooh. Limitations. Trapped. Cages. Traps again. Large cages. Stuff like that. D feels good. Multiple times. Limitations is another way for trapped and ranges, stuff like that. Which choice best states the main idea of the text? So we're looking for main idea. Remember, look out for transition words, things that are said more than once. For centuries, the widespread acknowledgement of the involvement of the cerebellum, a dense brain structure in vertebrates, is in coordinating motor control in humans, has hindered recognition of other possible functions of the structure. All right, We're so focused on this, we don't focus on other things this part of the brain can do. Neuroscience research from the last 2 decades suggests that the cerebellum regulates emotion and social behavior. And recent research of that person and the colleagues has identified a pathway connecting the cerebellum to the center for motivation. So what else can the cerebellum do? It regulates emotion, social behavior, center for motivation, and reward processing. Cool. So that's a lot more than just motor control, right? We're just sort of listing what we can do. Recent verification of pathway between blah, blah, blah and cerebellum confirms the cerebellum's long suspected role. No. Recent advances in the field of neuroscience have challenged widely accepted claims about the function of the pathway connecting that. So I don't think we've been debating whether or not cerebellum is connected to this area. I think we've been stumped by we've been blinded. We haven't been looking at everything. Cerebellum has primarily been thought to regulate motor functioning, but in recent years, neuroscience researchers have been covering on additional functions. That's perfect. That's exactly what we were talking about. Go and see. Actually, let's look at the last option, just in case. Technological limitations have historically hindered the study of cerebellum. No, that's not what hinders the study. It's our widespread acknowledgement. If we're so confident on here is what it does, and we don't let any room for what else, what if, that's our fault. Cool. So definitely going with C there. All right. What's the question? What does this text most strongly suggest about corals that produce bright colors? So we're focused on corals that produce bright colors. Algae living within the tissue coral play a critical role in keeping corals and the marine ecosystems they are part of thriving. Nothing about bright colors yet. Some coral species appear brown in color when healthy due to algae colonies living in their tissues. Still not bright colors. In the event of an environmental censor, the algae can die or be expelled, causing the corals to appear white. Okay, still not bright colors. To recover the algae, the bleached corals then begin to produce bright colors which block intense sunlight, encouraging the light-sensitive algae to recolonize the corals. Okay, finally. The only sentence about bright color stuff. And why do we have bright colors? It's to block intense sunlight. These corals have likely been subject to stressful environmental conditions. Yeah, that's true. Hold. These corals are likely more vulnerable to exposure from intense sunlight than the white corals are. That's true. No. They're less vulnerable. These corals have likely recovered from an environmental event without the assistance of algae colonies. False. They're trying to recover. They have not recovered. These corals are more likely to survive without algae colonies than the brown corals are. No, we need those algae. So, A. Let's double check. These corals have likely been subject to stressful environmental conditions. All right. Why are we turning bright? It's to recover the algae. And how does it do it? It blocks sunlight. Why would we need to recover the algae? In the event of an environmental stressor. Cool. Number 6. Actually, let's pause here so that these videos don't get too long. All right. Now, on to the 6th question. Yeah, these are tough. Having written the impassioned call to arms, the letters to the Spanish blah, blah. All right, I've seen this question before, so it's kind of cheating. But we have this a letter or paper written by this guy. is to be considered the forerunner of independence movements in Latin America. But transition word, that's why I say look out for the transition words or contrast words. Skarda's role in history would have remained insignificant if it wasn't for this other guy who handed the unpublished letter after this author's death. Miranda not only helped circulate it, but his edits and footnotes to the text prop up Miranda's as a central figure in the text creation. Cool. The original authorship of that is disputed. Nope. It's definitely written by the first person, but the second guy helps it. Oh, and it proves that he's the main person. Majority of the most eloquently stated arguments were written by Miranda. It said he wrote edits and footnotes. That doesn't sound like a majority of the most eloquently written parts of this paper. Miranda played a crucial role in influencing the content and distribution. Yep, definitely distribution and the content. He provided context for it. Later Spanish Americans persuaded many American people in Latin America to pursue national independence. That's a detail before the but, and I'm just not that interested in that. So we're going to see. All right. What does test most strongly suggest about conventional ETL fabrication? In a paper about PIN planar solar cells, one of the several cell architectures designed to collect and store solar panels, that person describes a method for fabricating this component of it using spray coating. All right, so what are we doing? What does the text strongly suggest about the conventional fabrication? This sounds like a new thing. Oh, sweet. Literally the words we're talking about. The conventional way is accomplished by using a solution of nanoparticles. The process results in a loss and increasing the cost at scale. And this new thing can solve it. All right. Old way, bad. We lose a lot of solution, increase costs. It's less suitable for so option choices. It's less suitable for manufacturing large volumes than the alternative. Maybe that sounds okay. I'm curious about the other ones though. Is more expensive when manufacturing at scale than the processes for fabricating used in other cell architectures. No, we don't talk about other structures. Typically entails a greater loss of nanoparticle solution than to established approaches for ETL. Established, I think, is another word for conventional, so I'm feeling like that's not right. It is somewhat imprecise and therefore limits the potential effectiveness of PIN polar perovskite solar cells at capturing and storing solar panel. Okay. I think A is the one that we held. It feels pretty good. It is less suitable. It's less suitable because it costs more and it loses the materials, loses the solutions. This one, we'll have to double check. We'll talk about it. All right. Next question. What does the text most strongly suggest about the disco genre? Disco remains one of the most ridiculed popular music genres of the late 20th century, but as scholars have argued, the genre is far less superficial than many people believe. Okay, a lot of people, common notion is that everybody hates on it. It is less superficial than we thought. Take the case of disco icon Donna Summers. She may have been associated with popular songs about love and heartbreak, subjects hardly unique to disco, by the way. But like many black women singers before her, much of her music also reflects concerns about community and identity. These concerns are present in many of the genre's greatest songs and generally don't require much digging to reveal. Okay, so disco is thought to be skin deep, but it can be meaningful. Evidenced by Donna Summers and the way she talks about community and identity. Option A. It has been unjustly ignored by most scholars despite the importance of its themes addressed by many of the genre's songs. That sounds pretty good. Let's hold. Involved over time. No talk about involved over time. It has been unfairly dismissed for the inclusion of subject matter that is also found in other music genres. This aside is not the main point. And so that's not mentioned more than once, so I'm going to go against that. It gave rise to black women's musical tradition that has endured even through the genre itself faded in the late 20th century. It is not the genesis of black women's musical tradition. That was long before disco, I assume. All right. A. Let's talk about, do you think it should show up more than once? It has been unjustly ignored, ridiculed, far less superficial than most people believe. She may have been associated about love and heartbreak. All right, so it's talking about being unjustly ignored, despite the importance of the themes addressed by many of the genre's songs. These concerns are present in many of the genre's greatest songs. A is feeling better and better. Okay, what choice best states the main idea of the text? So we're looking for main idea. In a study of new technology adoption, that person examined negative disconfirmations, which occur when experience falls short of one expectation, to determine whether it could lead to positive outcomes for the users. That's a lot to put my head around. We examine times where the experience falls short of expectations, to determine whether it could lead to positive outcomes. All right, the team focused on established users of smartphone technology, which present inherent utilization challenges but tend to attract users with high expectations, often leading to feelings of dissonance. The researchers found that many users employed cognitive mechanisms to mitigate those feelings, ultimately reversing their initial sense of disappointment. Okay. It feels like this group's research is supporting the idea that it could lead to a positive outcome. Mitigating bad feelings, I would say, is a positive outcome. All right, so that's what we're going with. Research suggests that most users of smart home technology will not achieve a feeling of satisfaction given the utilization challenges of such technology. No, a lot of them will mitigate those feelings. Although most smart home technology is aimed at meeting or exceeding users' high expectations, those expectations generally remain poorly understood. We don't really talk about those expectations, but I don't know. Still not liking it. Research suggests that the users with high expectations for new technology can feel content with that technology even after experiencing negative disconfirmations. That feels right. Although negative disconfirmation has often been studied, little is known about the cognitive mechanisms. We're not diving into negative disconfirmations. We're doing a study of new technology adoption. So we're going with C. All right, two more. Optical tweezers are specialized scientific tools particularly useful in biology and medicine. I know what these are, that you can light can literally pick up dust because of cool stuff. They use high-powered beams of light to trap and manipulate minuscule particles for study. Use of the tools have led to several scientific and medical breakthroughs. Crap, I forgot to read the first sentence, or like the question sentence. Basically, what is the one advantage of attaching glass beads to particles when using optical tweezers? Use of the tool has led to several scientific and medical breakthroughs over the last few days, but the particles are often under prolonged exposure to intense heat of the light beams. To overcome the risk of overheating and thereby damage, researchers sometimes attach a nano-sized glass bead to particles, allowing the light to focus on the beads instead of particles. Okay, so that last sentence is all about attaching glass beads to particles. Does not decrease the time. That's not what we're optimizing. It facilitates maneuvering particles without directly heating the particles themselves. I like that, but I feel iffy about maneuvering stuff. It allows researchers to use weaker light beams to manipulate particles. That's not what we're doing. We're not weakening the light. It adds material to which particles can transfer any heat absorbed from the optical tweezer's light beam. To overcome the risk of overheating and thereby damage, research sometimes attach nano-sized glass beads, allowing the light to focus on the beads instead of that. Cool. There is no talk about maneuvering, but we're all about focusing the light on the beads rather than the particles themselves. And that's really what that last thing is saying. Awesome. Last question. Okay. What choice best states the main idea of the text? Just another main idea thing. Some animal behaviors studies involve observing wild animals in their natural habitat, and some involve capturing wild animals and observing them in a laboratory. Each approach has advantages over the other. Okay. Sometimes we do wild observations, sometimes we do lab observation. And there are good and bad to both. In wild studies, researchers can more easily presume the animals are behaving normally. In lab studies, researchers can more easily control factors that might affect the results. So, good thing about wild is they act normally. Good thing about lab is we can control fuzzy variables that shouldn't be there. But if, for example, the results of a wild study and a lab study of western scrub jays contradict each other, one or both the studies must have failed to account for some factor that was relevant to the bird's behavior. It feels like we should focus on what's after the but. And it says that, hey, if the wild and the lab don't agree, we're missing something. When the results of a natural habitat study and those of the lab study, such as that, conflict, studying the natural habitat is more likely than the study to count accurate results. Hold on that one. I just don't like the second sentence. It says both studies. One or both the studies. Not which one, but just one or both have failed to account for some factor which are relevant. Studying wild animals such as western bird in both their natural habitat setting is likely to yield conflicting results that researchers cannot fully resolve. So, if, for example, the results from a wild study and lab study of observation contradict each other, if they contradict, we don't know whether or not they did. So, I feel like this is the tense is off on that one. Wild animals such as western that bird can be effectively studied in their natural habitat and in the lab, but each approach has drawbacks that could affect the accuracy of the findings. This feels good. Let's look at the last thing. Differing results between natural habitat and lab studies of wild animals such as that bird are a strong indication that both of the studies have design flaws that affect that. Nope. One or both. So I would say we're between A and C. C just felt better. And I'm going against A because it doesn't say whether or not the natural one is better or not. Wonderful. Okay. That was the last question. We'll stop the video, and I'll be checking to see how many of these I got wrong. Hopefully not a lot. My goal is less than one of them. Thank you all for tuning in.